Alright guys, welcome back to YoSpill, and in today's video, as you can tell from the title, we have the PT Cruiser back on the dyno, and we're going to talk a little bit about the dyno, how you set it up, how you calibrate everything properly, because I see a lot of people have questions about the fan and how it's calibrated, and why I always talk about the calibration, and then we're going to do a test. We're going to do the PT Cruiser with the full exhaust. It has a cat delete on it. It's literally just a 2.5 inch piece of pipe welded in where the cat used to be. And I'll show you that here in a second. And then the exhaust that's on it, which is a Mopar Performance PT exhaust, but it's for an NA car, and you'll see how restrictive that is. And then we're going to pop the exhaust muffler off rear section and then see how much it gains on the dyno. So I'm going to start doing a lot more videos like this where it's testing stuff on the dyno and showing you guys the difference. So if you guys have a car at home and you've ever wondered, like, open down pipe versus full exhaust, or cold air intake versus stock intake, or anything like that, I'll test it. I'll let you guys know. I'll make a video on it. I'll show you everything I did, and then we'll get a lot more informative on the channel. I know before it was just like random videos of all my builds, but I kind of want to get more into the informational thing and learning with you guys and showing you guys basically what happens when you modify small things or big things on an engine. That's obviously a 4-cylinder turbo, because that's what I stick to, and the gains or losses you make. Some people think you throw an intake on a car and it gains power. Most of the time, it actually doesn't really gain anything. So let me flip the camera around here. I'll first talk about the PT Cruiser, and then second we'll talk about the dyno, and then we're going to make a pull with the way the car gets driven every day, and then we're going to pull the rear muffler section off, which takes a single 2.5 inch pipe and splits it into a dual muffler outlet, and then we'll show you the graphs, show you the difference, and give you a conclusion at the end and see what you guys think. Alright guys, so on the dyno today we have the 2003 PT Cruiser Turbo 5-speed. So this is one of the donor cars I bought just to steal the motors out. I fixed this car for less than 10 bucks. The kid that sold it to us thought it was blown up. And it had a lot of nice parts on it. The wheels didn't come on it. It did have decent tires, and a whole interior was swapped. It has a leather black interior swap in it. So it's actually a pretty fun car to drive. And it is stick shift. It is a 5-speed turbo PT GT, which is pretty rare. There are not that many of them made, and these transmissions are very strong. They are not the same as SRT4 transmissions. Everyone thinks they are. They are actually a much different design for it to fit in the small frame rails of the PT. As you see here, the intake manifold looks nothing like an SRT4. The long block is exactly the same as an SRT4. Same turbo, same downpipe, same everything that you can get on a factory SRT4. This manifold right here obviously is for torque, because a PT Cruiser is about 500 pounds heavier than an SRT4. Another limitation is also the small front opening here. The intercooler is about 3/4 the size of an SRT4 intercooler. So obviously you get heat soak a lot faster and it loses power. This thing has a factory airbox, factory intercooler, factory injectors, literally 100% factory stock, and it has 180,000 miles. Now for what we'll be testing today, here is the exhaust. So you have your single outlet over here, you have your single outlet over here, and then underneath the car you see those two pipes come out of the muffler, and then there's the pipe into the muffler. So if you look, it's literally one 2.5 inch pipe in, and one, maybe, I would say 1 7/8, two 1 7/8 pipes out, and there's your full 2.5 inch exhaust from the turbo all the way back, and all the bends. We'll be pulling it apart right here at this clamp, and we'll be seeing the power gains. But let's first make a pull as is, see what it makes, and then we'll pull that off, and it'll be notably louder. Let's see if it actually gains any power. Alright guys, so now when it comes to the dyno portion, you have your dyno module box over there, your actual dyno over here, your wideband sensor, your power box, which controls the eddy current brake. So this is a loaded dyno. This is not a free spinning dyno. You can load the dyno to any percentage of load you want if you want to do tuning and all of that. The load cell is always connected to the roller, so you're spinning the extra load cell at all times. So that makes this dyno read lower than everybody else's, or what I would consider correct, because you actually have more weight, you're spinning it like a proper weight of a car. And when I'm always talking about the calibrations, in the run files here, you can actually set it up based off a trigger sensor. If you go to a dyno and they do not hook a tach signal to your car, they are basing your power off the roller speed. Basically how fast your car accelerates the roller. DynoJet does not let you input the weight of the car, so it doesn't correctly adjust for it. Some of the older Mustang dynos, you can adjust for it based off of weight if they're not using a tach signal to your car. When you buy a dyno, they send you to the school to let you learn about all the different dynos, and they teach you all these things. So if you want a proper horsepower and torque figure, you need a torque signal right here to your car, so you get a RPM signal, and then the dyno reads the load versus the RPM signal, and that's obviously how you get your power. Now you can go in here and you can recalibrate it for every car so that it understands that that RPM equals that gear ratio. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'll try to reply to you and explain to it. And then there's a bunch of filters here where you can actually filter out the noise of the spark, which helps you make the dyno graphs look cleaner. Some of them, depending on the wasted spark cars or standalone cars, you can't really get the signal perfect. So most graphs, if you pull up a graph here, here's a dyno graph of a PT, you'll have engine RPM down here, you'll have torque over here, you'll have horsepower over there. If you go to a shop and they only give you a horsepower number, and down here is always speed or time, they're obviously not using a torque signal, so you can't get an actual torque reading of the car. Are the numbers correct? Well, yes, it is a correct number for what the car made at that point. Is it 100% accurate to what your car potentially makes? Probably not, because they're using dyno speed. I've used both and went back and forth, and they are within 10, 12 horsepower almost every time. It's just like the filters. If you go through the filters for the SAE or the standard correction, you can usually gain or lose 10, 15 wheel horsepower. Now, the dyno box has a atmosphere sensor right there. It's basically a weather sensor. That is what gives you your correction factor for the weather. Some dynos, they don't have that in the shop. They have it in a box, or they have it hidden in a computer stand. So that can also affect your numbers as well. Now that I'm done rambling about a dyno, let's get into the dyno pool. Let's see what the PT GT makes today. The best it's made before was 217 and 305 when it was dead cold. And I drove this to get coffee this morning, so it's going to make less than that. And I've beat on it for the last 4,000 miles. So let's get into making a dyno pool. Then we'll pull the exhaust off. We'll make another pool, and then we'll see the results. All right, so that pool we made 221 horsepower and 262 foot-pounds of torque. You can see here, your RPM at the bottom, your torque over there, your horsepower over there. So the 217 and 305 is the previous best pool for horsepower and torque. We just did 221 and 262. So that shows you how much of a span in power and torque you can have on the same exact car. This is the same exact car, same exact mods, just on different days. So obviously the numbers do mean something, but if you can have a range of 30, 40 wheel torque, obviously anything could change in between day to day. So just because your car got dynoed one day and makes a certain power doesn't mean it always makes that power, or your tune could be adjusting the boost for the weather, air intake temps, many of things the ECU adjusts for. But if you look up here, the pools are very consistent. So down here is just the torque and the load of the dyno. If you load the dyno on a turbo car, you will always make more torque. As you see right here, it looks like it had more load on it, spiked the boost a lot harder. That's why the torque number is so high. So you can kind of manipulate the torque figure, but at the end of the day, you're looking at the whole entire power band. You're not looking at just the section up top. And so let's pop off the rear section of the exhaust that I showed you, and let's see what it does. All right, guys, so muffler, exhaust, now separated. So you guys can see exhaust clamps taken off. Let's see how much power we gain or lose. So, the results are in. 221 horsepower is the best pull with the exhaust on, 262 foot-pounds of torque. 224 horsepower, 257 foot-pounds of torque. And if you look at the graphs here, for how much noise difference and how much more flow you would think from having the 2.5-inch open pipe versus the muffler with the little 2-inch outlets, you would think it kills a ton of horsepower on a turbo car. Well, with a small, stock, efficient turbo, it doesn't really change much. As you see in the whole graph here, it's very similar. The ECU can only adjust so much. So your horsepower difference, I had my brother guess, and my brother thought it was going to make 20 or 30 wheel horsepower difference. Yeah, it made less than 3 horsepower. So all that noise for taking your muffler off your PT Cruiser for 3 wheel horsepower. Definitely do not suggest it. Time to put our exhaust back on. So the last pull for the video, that was the exhaust put back on. And we made a back-to-back pull. It was literally 2 clamps on the bolt, stick the exhaust back on, no tuning changes at all. And you see, it actually gained horsepower. Take from this video what you want. It's not a full educational purpose video. This is a back-to-back real world dyno pull situation. We didn't change the dyno, we didn't change the car. The car was strapped down the same each time. Every pull was done in 3rd gear. The car had the fan in front of it on the intercooler every time. So nothing was changed from pull to pull. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Leave down in the comments below if you want to see me do intake test, intercooler piping test. Like, what do you want to see me do next on the PT Cruiser or any of the cars in general? The Juke, the all-motor Hondas, we can do intake pipe testing, headers, exhaust, to see the differences. So leave down in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Until the next one.